Hey, welcome back to We Die Like Men. I'm Mike, and today's video is about becoming a firefighter and medic, a profession that I had for quite a few years. My favorite job I ever did. And there's pros and cons. There's a lot of things to unpack with this job. So let's get to it. So, for just a little background, I spent 13 years as a firefighter and medic for a call department here in the state of Maine. But I grew up in that whole world. My father spent a little over 20 years as a firefighter with Portland, Maine, achieved the rank of lieutenant. When he retired, I don't know, the last 11 or 12 years of his career, he was also head of Fire Prevention and Code Enforcement Bureau for Portland, Maine. Think of it like their fire marshal. He did building inspections, worked with the architects when they were building stuff, issued permits, pulled people's permits when they weren't up to code, did some fire investigations after the fact. If you had firefighters come to your school during Fire Safety Week and passing out stuff and teaching, that was something he did a lot. He was involved with. Even taught some of the fire prevention and code enforcement to a local tech college here that has a firefighting program. He wrote some laws that became national life safety codes. He went San Francisco and San Antonio doing seminars on it and giving speeches, kind of a keynote speaker for some of that stuff. It was something he was very passionate about. Growing up, my parents used to have friends come over quite often on a Saturday evening and play cards. They used to host Bible studies during the week, and almost all of it was husband and wife couples. Pretty much everyone that showed up, the husband was a firefighter in Portland. My dad's best friend from like first grade, they went all through school together. They did Coast Guard together. They became Portland firefighters. Glenn was a firefighter right before Dad talked him into taking the job. I had more uncles than than I knew what to do with. They weren't really uncles, but and they were all firefighters. As a little child, kid, 4 years old, 5 years old, I thought everyone's dad must be a firefighter. I learned pretty quick when I got into elementary school, kindergarten, and stuff that wasn't the case. But I started doing it at 13. Now, I know you're going to say that's really young. Here in rural Maine, at that time, it was really up to the department and the parents as to what the firefighter could do when we were young like that. We weren't even really called junior firefighters. But so the chief of the department had worked with my dad. When my dad went in 1968, Howie Lewis was the chief up there. At that time in 68, though, he was the engineer on the first engine that my father was assigned to. Howie went on and became a captain with Portland and retired, moved to Rangeley. We moved up there permanent in 89. We'd always had a camp. We turned that camp into a regular house. And we joined the fire department. Howie Lewis was like, looked at my dad, said, Jim, whatever you're comfortable with, let him do it. So, and Dad was like, as long as myself or someone I trust is with him, I'm comfortable with anything. I went into my first working structure fire at 13 years old. I was doing some extrication work at 14 years old. Now, I was a pretty big kid at that age, physical size. I was thin, but, I'm like 5'10", and I was probably 5'9" at that point, probably weighed 175 pounds, as a freshman in well, not even as a freshman in high school. It would have been like 8th grade, something like that. I got my driver's license at 17. Right after that, I was taking the classes EVOC and AVOC. That's Emergency Vehicle Operation Course and Ambulance Vehicle Operation Course. I started driving fire trucks and ambulances at 17. I got my license as a medic in the state of Maine at 17. I had my national firefighting certification at 18 in this 1001 certification, firefighter 1 and 2. So it was my whole life. I used to sit around and listen to the guys talk about the firefighting that they were doing and the techniques and the equipment. and how much it changed from 1968 for my dad till he retired in 1989. Portland Fire Department had 2 or 3 Scott Air Packs. There were SCBA, self-contained breathing apparatus. They were at the airport with the crash trucks stationed there primarily. They didn't use them. The gear was different. The way they fought fires was different. The fires they were fighting were different. Now you might say, geez, Mike, fire's been around for billions of years. The fire itself may not have been, but what was burning was the materials within buildings. It was not as much fire code. Nowadays, a lot of things have to be more flame retardant or not support combustion as well. They didn't care back then with a lot of and stuff people had was 30 years old in 1968. So, there just wasn't a lot. The buildings were old. They didn't all have sprinkler systems or really good egress, exits in and out and even entrance points. They were old brick buildings, some of them the 1800s. The fires were just different. Now you see less fires sometimes, more rescue calls. Obviously, the bigger the department, if you're in New York or LA or Chicago or whatever, you're going to see a lot of fires because you've got a lot of people. But it's still less probably than it was in, say, 1976, 50 years ago, because of codes. Dad wrote national life safety codes that are now, federal law. Some of them may have been superseded. He was very good at that code enforcement and writing codes and figuring that stuff out. He went on seminars. I remember one in San Francisco and one in San Antonio, where he was a keynote speaker on fire prevention, code enforcement, things like that for firefighting, state fire marshals, that stuff. This was his forte. Um, so I started young, and I think in some ways that helped me. It helped me fill in that what I had listened to them talk about and then what I was physically doing and kind of fill in those blanks and understand it better. By the time I was in my early 20s, I had a lot of years of experience. You think about the time I was 21, I had 8 years experience as a firefighter. Um, I went through all kinds of training, hazmat, tank truck rollover, or just truck rollover stuff, um, search and rescue, high and low angle, water rescue. High and low angle rescue, by the way, is like rappelling and stuff. I went through any course I could find that the department would send me through. I went and took. I got a stack somewhere of certifications. A lot of them are expired now because, well, I don't keep up with that. But things that I did because I loved the job. To me, it wasn't a job, it was the greatest thing to do. I just loved it. But there's a dark side to it, a very dark side to it. And that's why a lot of us will say it's not for everybody. And some people will get mad at us about that. And they're like, well, you're gatekeeping, you're keeping, people out of it. What if they really want to do it? Great, they really want to do it. But there's still a physical limitation. It's a very physically demanding job. There's a mental, I say limitation. There's kind of a baseline where at least you have to be at physically and mentally. You have to be smart enough to know what you're doing, to learn, to remember the things and be able to recall them under stressful situations. And you have to be able to think quick. You do not have time in that job to sit down and have a meeting about it and have a focus group and run some tests. And no, the house is on fire. We need to get people out. I need to know now. Excuse me. Allergies. And you better be right, or else you, everyone around you, and the people you're in there to save may not survive. There's the emotional side of it too. You have to be well grounded emotionally. You have to be able to suppress your emotion, push it away. You have to be able to deal with it when the time is right. Kind of reach down in the bag and grab those emotions, pull them up, look at it, process them, and let them go. something I was very, very good at suppressing them. I was not very good at looking at them and going, okay, work through this. Now go be free, and I'm done with that. As much as you ever really are, but we put a lot of expectations on those jobs because they're so important. Because we're dealing with human lives, not just the patients and victims, but our own and those of our fellow coworkers. If you screw up at your office job, you might get fired, somebody else might get fired, the business might lose some money, but typically someone's not going to die. I get there are jobs where that can happen, but in that line of work, you screw up, yeah, somebody's probably losing their life. You don't want that on your shoulders. If you're looking at this job as a moneymaker, boy, I can make a lot of money firefighting. You can. Once you've been in for a while, the money can be very good. The hours are, excuse me, they afford you a lot of time off quite often, which means you can either work a different job. A lot of the guys and girls will work extra shifts with their department, or if their department allows, pick up shifts with a neighboring department or one around you. And you can make really, really good money. But if you're going into this job because, oh, it pays pretty well, there's a full pension, there's full benefits, I can retire after 20, 25 years, you're going into it for the wrong reasons. While those are all important, and they're one things I stress to people when they're looking for a career, that it's a very good career in the financial side of things. Not the greatest, but it's still very good without having to do a multi-year degree. Some departments do want to see some college degree or vocational training or technical college. 2-year technical college degrees are a lot less money, and sometimes departments will pay that off for you if you stick around. Um, but you have to be the right person, have the right personality, and the right traits, or you're setting yourself up for failure, lifelong failure sometimes. It's no different in a lot of ways than being in the military or being in any other high stress occupation where you've got to be able to adjust to what's going on, deal with the stress, and still be able to function well. Can you put up with the blood, the guts, the gore, somebody throwing up all over you sometimes, hopefully not on you, but once in a while, you know, people crying, people having a really shitty bad day. Um, can you deal with that? Can you deal with the physical rigors of the job? You know, you might be on a fire scene for 3, 4 hours and it can be physically exhausting. And hey, guess what? You just get cleaned up, you're heading back to the station, another call comes in, you're running to that one. You got to be able to dig deep and keep pushing on. Um, a lot of departments will run they're usually 24-hour shifts. I can't speak for all departments, but here in the US, a lot of them are 24-hour shifts. So you'll work one shift on, one shift off, one shift on, 5 days off, or one on, two off, one on, 4 days off. At least those are the ones I'm seeing a lot of. When my dad went in '68, it was a 3, 3, and 3. There were 12-hour shifts. You'd work 3 day shifts, then 3 night shifts, then have 3 days off. And then 3 day shifts, 3 night shifts, 3 days off. That's just the way it worked. And you were always with your same crew. So they got pretty close with each other. And those guys, my dad's group, they'd take hunting and fishing trips together. Like I said, they'd be over the house. We'd have, go to kids' birthday parties. It was a family affair, When my father passed away a few years ago, there was, a lot of firefighters there. There was Coast Guard was there and all that stuff too. But, there was a lot of guys that have been like, hey, you know, he was family. So if you have the right mindset, if you want that sense of accomplishment, like you're making a real difference in the world, I would recommend it. However, you have to be 100% honest with you. Can I do this? Can I handle it? Think back to when you've been around somebody that got hurt, a friend, a family, a total stranger, whatever. How did you respond? Did you panic and freeze? Maybe the job's not for you. Did you go, hey, somebody go get help? You know, grab a teacher, call 911, whatever. Hey, who here knows what to do? Do we have somebody here that's trained? You might be the person for that. You might say, but I don't have any of the training. Well, you need to get it. You can get the training. You can't necessarily be trained very well on certain things. It's just you either have it or you don't. We've heard of the fight or flight syndrome, or I don't call it a syndrome, but fight or flight mechanism. There's danger, and some people either turn and run, put their hands up and fight it. You know, someone jumps out at you, or they freeze. So, if you're the type that turns and runs, I've seen some of those people be able to get over that in this line of work and get through it. If you're the type that goes in for it, usually that's a really good sign. You're gonna not panic in there. You got to learn to think through it, and not just dive head first in without knowing what's going on. If you're the type that freezes, it's probably not the right job for you. Even the one that turns and runs, it may or may not be right for you. I've seen those people, like I said, be able to kind of get over it. The ones that freeze up, and I've seen people, my wife is one that, when the kids were little, if they got hurt bad, she just would freeze up. Scared the hell out of me, because if I wasn't there, there's nobody to watch the kids. I don't know how long she'd have stayed froze up for. I never, was going to sit there and let my kid be injured and needing help like that. I'm just seeing what time it is. Um, so, God love her. She's a great mother, but it was when they would get seriously hurt. Our daughter knocked herself out and kind of went into the little kids especially, but anybody, when they get knocked unconscious, she hit her head. They can kind of almost seize, looking like the shake, the convulsions. Her head was back, her eyes were fluttering. It was a concussion. It was a serious one. And we got her to the ER, and thank God she was fine. She's done that 3 times, by the way, when she was little. Just a kind of a clumsy kid. She'd get running and trip over her own feet and right into something. We joked we were going to get her a full helmet, but she's 16 now. She's fine. She's absolutely brilliant. Honor roll, National Honor Society, that kind of stuff. So, I don't know. Maybe it knocked more sense into it. I wouldn't suggest trying it. But I don't know. She's doing fine. Oh, these allergies. Right before I started the video, I was getting ready to do something. I just kind of like this and had a mouthful of saliva and other stuff and sucked that down. I had a 5-minute coughing fit. My throat's still a little sore. Enough on that, though. If you want to help people, if you want to be part of something bigger, it is a phenomenal way to go. It sounds corny, but I would get up in the morning and you're standing there in the mirror, for us guys, shaving, brushing your teeth, whatever. You could look yourself in the eyes in the mirror and be like, I'm making a difference. There are people out there walking, talking, living life today because of what I did. They probably wouldn't be if either myself or someone like me, didn't always have to be me, but wasn't there to help them. You would see people walking down the street and you're like, I saved their life. Literally saved their life. It was a good feeling. You can't be narcissistic about it, but you want that. It's like, man, that feels good. It feels really good. The dark side. You can't save everybody. And when you see someone walking down the street and say, I tried to save their loved one and I wasn't able to. And you see the pain on their face still. And sometimes the anger towards you. Losing a loved one, as anybody who's ever lost somebody close to them, it's a traumatic experience mentally and emotionally, and there's a physical drain. It's hard. And sometimes that sadness and that confusion and loneliness and fear comes out in anger. And quite often they're going to point to the person and say, I called you to save them, and they died. You didn't do your job. We're not God. Paramedics sometimes like to think they are. That's why we used to call them paragods, behind their back at least. Sometimes to their face, but you can't save everybody. We can't do that. There's a lot of times by the time even the call came into us, it was too late. They were either already gone or it was beyond saving. I mean, we'd get there sometimes, they're still alive, but they were so badly injured that they had lost enough blood or whatever. There was nothing we could do. We're an ambulance. We're not a surgical center. We're not trauma surgeons. We don't have that kind of equipment. We don't have that training and knowledge. While we have a lot of training and knowledge, and Maine, thankfully, has always been one of the hardest states to get your EMT and paramedics licenses. I never received my paramedics license. I wanted to, but I just never had the time to. It's a lot. But it was always very difficult. The criteria, the testing, and everything to go through to get it. Because we're so remote and rural, and a lot of times you're transporting for an hour or more to a major hospital, you've got to be able to do a lot. That was a lot of states would accept Maine's EMT and paramedics licenses. If you had a valid one, you could move to another state and show them that, and they're like, "Yep, here's your license for here too." You know, if you want to work there. Some of them might say, "Oh, here's a quick written test or skills test. Show me this and that." Okay, you're good. Here you go. And it seems to be the rural states that have that more. Maine, Alaska was tough. There was a bunch of states where your departments were out there. You had a long ways to go. It's one thing in New York City. One, you're going to get a lot of experience and training and practice because you're busy. Two, you're usually not that far from a major hospital. I don't know, traffic can slow down and things like that, but still, you're usually pretty damn close to a major hospital. Where a lot of times, we're 60, 70 miles to a hospital. 200 miles or close to it to a level 1 trauma center, or 150, 160 miles. We would use, life flight type services as often as possible. Weather, sometimes up in the mountains, did not make that possible. So, you have to take all of that into consideration and know that you can honestly look at yourself and say, I'm going to go into this and I'm going to do everything in my power to help people and to help save people. I can't save them all. Some are going to die. Some are going to be little baby infants, all the way up through to 95-year-old, 102-year-old grandma, grandpa. I went on a rescue call on a Sunday afternoon at a camp. A very nice little camp. We get there, elderly gentleman in the recliner, not breathing, no pulse. We pull him out of that, get him on the floor, we start CPR. And he was in his late 80s. I want to say he was like 87 or 88, somewheres around there. Baseball game's on. He was kicked back in the recliner. His wife had been over in the kitchen. She was, I'm going to say, a bit younger, late 70s, early 80s, was my guess. Maybe even a little younger than that. She said he was watching the game, fell asleep, was snoring. She was cleaning up, just puttering around, and I can't remember if she was doing some baking or whatever. Doing her thing. Realized she didn't hear him snoring. Went over and checked, called to him, nothing, went over and checked, he wasn't breathing. By the time we got there, we don't know how long he had been gone for. We tried CPR, we tried defibrillating with the paddles where you shock them, everyone yells, clear. Nothing, no response. Paramedic calls into the ER, gets what's called a code gray. We can stop performing CPR and that stuff, transport the body to the hospital, let them make a determination. So that's what we did. As it turned out, he had had such a massive heart attack. The coroner's report was he could have had that laying on the table at one of the best heart surgery centers in the world with the best surgeons waiting, and they probably couldn't have saved him. It was that severe. And it's like, okay, that sucks. But he was late 80s. He had lived his life. He had raised his children, married, raised his children, seen his grandchildren, seen great grandchildren, had done a lot. Yes, it's hard on the family, but he was an older gentleman. It was bound to happen sooner rather than later, most likely. I mean, a lot of people don't even make it to their late 80s. Flip that around, and I go to a service call, go on a call, and it's a 6 or 7 month old that's not breathing, and we couldn't revive them. Believe that was SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. I don't know if we ever heard back exactly. That's a big difference. Similar situations of they're laying in bed, both of them, or in a recliner and in their crib. Somebody checks on them, they're not breathing, and we can't revive them. Big difference between an 89-year-old and a 7 month old. 6 months. I don't remember how old the baby was. There's a wide difference in your emotional reaction, your psychological reaction, your physical reaction to it. Some too. Um, Seeing a woman in her, let's say, early 80s with tears coming down her face looking at her husband of 60 years, let's say. But she knew, I'm sure that she knew that, hey, our time together is getting short. We don't know when that end will be, but it will be here soon. Sorry, I just hit the mic. Versus a mother looking at her infant that has passed and going, oh my God, it's such high hopes and dreams for you. And we were going to have such great times together, and those are gone now. That's a huge difference. An inconsolable mother versus a saddened but reflective and understanding widow. There's a huge difference there. It affects you differently. It pushes buttons on you differently. You have to be able to handle both, and some of the most gory, horrible things that you will hear, see, smell, taste in the air sometimes that you can imagine. When you go in on a welfare check and they've been passed away for a week and they died underneath an electric blanket that's still running, yeah, you're going to taste it. We used to take Vicks Vapor Rub and put it under our nose, and then a respirator mask, even if it was like the N95, sometimes going in because we knew that this probably meant they were gone. We knew the people that were elderly and lived alone. And I was like, I haven't seen them in 4 days and can't get a hold of them. Now, sometimes they were just laying there on the floor calling for help. Sometimes they had just passed away in their sleep. It's wintertime or whatever. They're cold. They get their electric blanket on. Well, it stays running. Yeah, not always a pleasant sight or smell. You have to handle both, and I don't want to make it sound like, oh, it's all horrible, because it's not. There is tremendous satisfaction. You are doing an important job. There can be financial reward. There is always that little bit of, I think firefighters, we walk with a little bit of swagger in our step. Not that I'm better than you, but like, hey, I'm doing something really important here. Not that you working in your office isn't an important job and helps the world go round, but there's that air of, again, I don't want to use superiority because it should never feel like that. If it does, you're doing it wrong for the wrong reasons again. But that, well, my job's a little more important than yours. Take a little more pride in it. You can say, well, I'm an accountant. Well, I'm a firefighter paramedic. Most people are going to be like, oh, you're an accountant? That sounds boring. Hey, tell me about your job as a firefighter paramedic, especially kids. Nobody goes to your office and says, oh, man, I want to see the calculator. They would come to ours and go, can I climb on the fire truck? We won. We won that cool factor. Um, Hell, even there's a reason that there's firefighter and paramedics is because police officers need heroes too. That's a jab towards police officers, yes, because we always were button heads. But when there was a scene and there was an emergency, we worked great together. Afterwards, we were better than them. They just didn't know it. Um, if you're interested in it, go check it out. The, Most departments right now are struggling to find qualified applicants. People who can physically do it, people who mentally and emotionally can do it. Physical, you can get there. You can train, you can hit the gym, you can work out. If you're interested in this, you're like, hey, what kind of workout should I do? Cardio, 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 first and foremost. Check with your doctor. Got to put the obligatory warning out there. Check with your doctor. Make sure that, you're healthy for that. And then strength training and flexibility. Being flexible can help you from getting hurt sometimes, but man, you got to twist in some weird positions. But cardio is the biggest. Strength training. You don't have to be able to deadlift 400 pounds, but you need to be able to pick up a reasonable amount of weight, 150 pounds, at least be able to get it up off the floor. You're going to, as a guy, you're going to carry a dummy that I don't know what the weight is now. I think it's still 225 off the floor on your shoulder, down at least one flight of stairs, 25 feet out the door, and be able to gently place it on the ground. Ladies, it was, I think, 165 or 155, whatever it was. Every department probably has a little bit different standards, and times have changed, so I don't know exactly what they're doing. I could ask my son; he went through it all. His high school had a vocational center, and one thing they did was it was a year of firefighting. For his junior year, his senior year was EMT. So there's always that. Matter of fact, his instructor, the lieutenant there, when he started with Portland Fire Department, worked under my dad for a while, or worked with my dad. However it would have been under my dad at that point because he would have just been a rookie firefighter, and dad would have been a lieutenant. So the the hard part on the job too is when it's a 24-hour shift. It's a 24-hour shift. I don't care if it's Christmas, you know, Easter, your birthday, your wedding anniversary, especially at first when you're new in the department, don't have any seniority, you're going to work them. Doesn't matter. Oh, hey, I got little kids at home and it's Christmas. I'm going to, yep. My older sisters went through it with my dad when it was his shift to work, and it would be, you know, 8, 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., Christmas Eve into Christmas morning. And sometimes, the shift would end, but they couldn't come right home. They're right in the middle of fighting a fire. Might not be home till 10, 11. They were little kids, two little girls. Where's daddy? We want to have Christmas. Well, he's working, Um, so there's going to be those times. You better be able to be away like that some. However, your chances of it falling on Christmas on your shift every year would probably be a lot less with these schedules because you get a lot more time off. And then you pick the shifts you want to pick up extra. Or maybe you're going to work, hey, maybe you're a hell of a carpenter. A lot of the guys in the fire department with my dad, that was their second job. They were either plumbers, electricians, or carpenters because they could work around those schedules. Some of them worked for, my dad included, one of the fire extinguisher companies, checking and refilling and testing fire extinguishers or sprinkler systems or whatever. Guys that were mechanics, truck drivers, their days off, they'd deliver home heating oil or groceries to the store or whatever. It was whatever worked for them. So you can do a lot. You could retire early. If you get into it in your early 20s, now a lot of departments will not hire you until you're 21. My son's run into that. He's got the certifications, but a lot of departments don't want to hire them full time because they're not 21 yet. He's 19. So, and he's not sure if he really wants to do that right now. So I'm like, hey, you do what you want to do, bud. I'm not going to sit here and push you into it. You can't. It has to be on your own. It has to be of your own free will and accord, as they say. So, I also would say you can in some departments do just firefighting or just medical. You're gonna want to learn both. It opens more opportunities for you. As a firefighter, you're gonna have to have some medical training. Not necessarily always EMT level, but some. More advanced than just, hey, I took a 1 day class, American Red Cross down the street. No, it's more than that. So, if you're interested in it, look into it. Be honest with you. That's the biggest thing I can tell you. Be honest with you as to whether or not you can handle it. You won't always know until you're there. So, that's going to be it for today. This is Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday. This video I hope will go up this Wednesday, tomorrow. I've got some old backlog videos I got to double check on and see what I want to do with them. So I'm clearing out space on my hard drive too. Between my wife's channel and mine, some of our videos are an hour plus. You have the raw video and then you edit it and you've got the finished video and you upload it, but both of them are still on your hard drive and I forgot to clean them out. Yeah, yesterday it told me my hard drive was full while editing a video. I'm like, uh-oh. I got it taken care of. I deleted a lot of crap that I just didn't need. So, all right, until then, remember, behave at least moderately. We're coming into summer, so enjoy it. Uh, Enjoy it safely. It's always a busy time for firefighters. Between fireworks and barbecues and drinking and around a pool and all that stuff. Don't be stupid. Have fun. Don't be stupid. All right. See you later. Bye.